What's going on, guys? Welcome back to EST. With the weather heating up, midsummer is approaching rapidly, and though hockey is now over, NBA is almost over. Game 7 of the NBA Finals tonight. So there may not be a lot going on in the sports world, but one thing's for certain, we are getting closer and closer to the NFL season. So, hey, we will never run out of topics to talk about. And today, we're first going to get off to a good start. We're going to go back 5 days ago, NHL Stanley Cup Finals. It was not at all what I had hoped for. Sorry for Canada. Sorry for Edmonton. Florida wins back-to-back cups. This is now their third straight cup appearance. And now what we have to wonder going into next season is their run over, or will they be back for a fourth straight year and potentially win their third consecutive? The player of the game was Sam Reinhart, scored 4 goals. And again, it was not a great sight to see. This is not the game that we were hoping for. We were hoping for a closely contested game, especially with Edmonton circling back to their original starter in the net, being Skinner. And really from the first period, it was starting to look like it could possibly be a rout. And boy, what a shellacking it was. The final was 5-1. Only nothing really to talk about really for Edmonton, in all honesty. On Florida's end, it was Alexander Barkov with 2 assists. Lundell also had an assist. Sam Reinhart, like I said, had 4 goals. Really, I would accredit him with 3. The 4th goal came at the very end of the game when Edmonton pulled their goalie, hoping with that 6th man on the ice to try and get a few goals. Matthew Tkachuk with the other goal, and Carter Verhaeghe had 3 assists, and Ekblad had an assist. And it just, it really once again just shows how much better Florida is than really the rest of the entire NHL. They've been for a couple of seasons now. It's a shame because, again, for Edmonton, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, 2 of the best in the league, especially the run that Leon Draisaitl was on. McDavid left a lot to be desired. Everybody knows how skilled and talented this man is and how fast he is, but he only had 1 goal throughout the entire series, and now there is a lot of talk going into the offseason, with Edmonton now, because McDavid is on the last year of his deal. So will he resign for a long-term deal? Also, Corey Perry. Corey Perry he's already came out and said that he doesn't necessarily want to retire. If Edmonton would take him back, he would come back. Evan Bouchard is a restricted free agent. So, again, we're going to see what's going to happen in the near future, in the next couple of months. But there some funny news that came out right after the Stanley Cup was won by Florida. They banged the Stanley Cup up a little bit more. This isn't the first time. The past couple of years, Tampa Bay dropped the cup during their boat parade in 2021. The following year, the Colorado Avalanche won, and they dented it the night that they won it on the ice. Well, this time around, the boys in Florida, they got a crack in the bowl of the trophy, and the bottom is all dented up. So there's going to be a lot they got to do in repairs for that before next year's cup. And, it's all worth it. When you win at the end of the day, hey, you're going to dent it up a little here and there. The the trophy's over 100 years old. So it's not the first time, won't be the last time. And sticking with the NHL, even though NHL is done now, and once again, congratulations for the Florida Panthers for their back-to-back Stanley Cup wins. And like I said, this was their third consecutive appearance. So now we just talked about Edmonton, but looking around the league, there's a bunch of teams that really, are going to try and do their best in the next few months to try and up their chances of possibly getting to a cup next year. I don't know that anyone's going to be able to overtake Florida in the East. But boy, a lot of teams are going to try. And same thing with Edmonton. If they both keep those core groups together, hey, maybe we'll see something, potentially that we may have never seen in the NHL before. Maybe we'll get 3 consecutive years with the same exact matchup in the finals, but that remains to be seen. So let's look at some of the other teams, like Washington, for example. I'm wondering myself, will Ovi return? I mean, now he has the all-time goal, the all-time goal title. So he really, at this point, doesn't really have too much else to play for. But I'm eager to see what their team will look like, because Washington was one of the best teams in not only the Eastern Conference, but in the NHL altogether this year. They were missing a few of their guys, though, TJ Oshie and Nicholas Backstrom, who are both unrestricted free agents, missed the entirety of the season. Oshie was out with a chronic back issue. Backstrom had a hip injury. So if all 3 of these guys come back, then you never know. I mean, Washington, again, they were one of the better teams in the league this year, even without Oshie and without Backstrom. Carolina Hurricanes, that's another intriguing one, another team to look at. They keep seeming like they're inching a little closer to a cup, but every time they run into Florida, it has not gone well for them. And as we've seen, it doesn't really go well for any team that has to match up against Florida. But they do have over 36 million in cap space. So we'll see what the Hurricanes, what their game plan is to move forward, who they're going to maybe sign some big names in the offseason. I don't know that they'll be able to, like I said, overtake Florida, but hey, you got to try. Toronto Maple Leafs won the division title for the first time in 25 years. They also finished 4th in the NHL in points with 108. Had the 7th best offense with about almost 3.5 goals per game. They also had the 8th best defense, allowing less than 3 goals per game. One of the best goaltending tandems in Anthony Stolarz, who was 21-8-3 as a starter with a .92 save percentage. And he also allowed only a little over 2 goals per game on average. And the other goaltender being Joseph Woll, who went 27-14-1 as a starter and had a .9, almost a 91% save percentage, and only allowed on average 2.7 goals per game. And, again, Toronto seemed like another team that was going to be very close. May I remind you, they were almost a team that took down the Panthers earlier in the playoffs. They had them pinned 2-0 before Florida came back in that series. Then you got other teams, too, in question, like Dallas, which, yet again, they did just fire Pete DeBoer. It was rough go for them, and he may not have gotten canned had he have not thrown his goaltender under the bus, one of the better goaltenders in the NHL, in Ottinger. So I'm interested to see what they do as well, because they were 3 consecutive years they made it to the Western Conference Finals. Winnipeg, who I believe had the best record in the NHL this year. They're another team that you got to think about for next season. Then you have some teams that I'm personally thinking about that were nowhere near playoff contention in the Philadelphia Flyers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Anaheim Ducks. Maybe one of those teams next year can get a little closer to making the playoffs or even hopefully making the playoffs. And the Rangers. The Rangers that's another team right there. They were very close to getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, I believe, 2 seasons ago, or maybe it was last season. So that's another team, too, that we got to think about here. And while we're at it with the Rangers, I actually have something that I was going to talk about here. The Rangers re-signed their popular forward, Matt Rempa, on a 2-year deal. Now, if you don't know him, he's not exactly a game changer in terms of points or goals. However, he is a fan favorite. He is one of the guys that is constantly getting in fights. And when it comes to hockey, hey man, that's going to bring attention to the sport. That's one of the things about hockey players, how tough they are. And Rempa is always ready to fight and drop the gloves and get it, with anybody really. He's only 22 years old. He's played 70 regular season and playoff games for the Rangers over the past 2 years. Getting him under contract is the latest move by their GM, Chris Drury, after trading Chris Kreider to the Anaheim Ducks. And again, they're hoping to maybe some way, somehow make it back to an Eastern Conference Finals. Yes, I was right. Last time they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals was just a year ago in 24. But yeah, so this is a good signing. This is somebody that you definitely want to have a part of your team. He's been working hard to develop, and he's got the potential to become, one of the stars in this league. He was a sixth round pick back in 2020, and he's only recorded 5 goals and 6 assists. But like I said, with him, it's more so he brings toughness to them. He brings that extra element, that intimidation factor when they play other teams. And that's somebody you always want to have around, especially when it comes to hockey. Now we'll get into some NBA news. Game 6 of the finals, a few days ago. That was a rout. That was also a rout. Indiana was up by 22 at the half. If you've seen this game, by the time there was maybe about 3 or so minutes left in the first quarter, it had already looked like it was going to... You never know with OKC, but if you were a Pacers fan, you've seen the potential of that game being a rout. And even with, a banged-up Tyrese Halliburton, who actually was moving around really well, surprisingly, just a few days from that potential injury. They said he ended up having a strain in his calf, and hey, man, whatever he did, everything that he did, it worked. And that was the first time that the Pacers won a game in the playoffs without Halliburton reaching those numbers that we had already talked about before, 20 points and at least 8 assists. So, hey, bravo for the rest of the squad to, make sure that even without Halliburton playing at 100%, that they were going to get back to a Game 7 and, even things up and try to take the whole thing. They, like I said, they were up by 22 at the half. It was 64-42 at that point in the game. Now, I have a few stats that I was going to ramble off here. The Pacers are now the first team in NBA history with 8 players to score 200 plus points in the playoffs. Also, Indiana forced a Game 7, and this is the first time that we're going to view a Game 7 in the NBA Finals since 2016. Pacers have now won 6 straight Game 6s by double digits, which is the longest streak in NBA history. They also tied the Miami Heat from 2023 with most underdog wins in a single postseason over the last 35 years, and it was 10 of those games. The last three teams who won Game 6 after being down 3-2 in an NBA Finals ended up going on to having their banner hung. So, hey, you gotta be excited if you're an Indiana Pacers fan, because I mean, this is it. This is it, man. This is the last game. This is it. This is all you're going to see until, around October, I believe, is when the season is going to start back up. So they got to get it done tonight. McConnell also, by the way, was the first bench player in NBA history with 60 or more points, 25 or more assists, and 15 or more rebounds in an NBA Finals. McConnell has been playing his butt off, and especially, again, when you have somebody like Halliburton who was going through what he was going through with that, dealing with that injury, you got to be so thankful that you have somebody like TJ McConnell on your roster. So when we look at the box score, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP of the league, he had 21 points. He was 50% from the field. He just didn't do enough. He was a minus 17. And outside of him, they had Isaiah Hartenstein with 10 points. They had Jalen Williams, who was a minus 40, coming off that game where he had a 40-piece. And only 16 points. And then Isaiah Joe was the only other one that had double digits, or them with 11. So that's not going to get it done, especially Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren only had 4 points and 6 rebounds. So they gotta find something else. Dort only had 3 points. When you look on the other end here, Pascal Siakam had a double-double with 16 and 13. Aaron Naismith had 10 points. He was a plus 24. He was 2 of 6 from 3. Also, Andrew Nembhard with 17. And between him and Naismith and Nembhard, man, they were getting hot from 3 and early in the game, too. Halliburton himself had three three-pointers. He was a plus 25 with just 14 points and only 5 assists. He did, however, also have 2 steals. Then you got Obi Toppin, who came up huge, who actually led them in points with 20 points. He also sprinkled in 6 rebounds and 2 steals of his own. So, and he was 4-7 from 3. So again, man, this was a great overall game. And then, and TJ McConnell, obviously, of course, I just mentioned him. He had 12 points of his own and 9 rebounds. So you gotta just make sure that you're playing your game tonight. You want to be the ones that set the pace and, get off to a good start. And, hopefully the Indiana Pacers can get it done. I was saying before, with me being a Nuggets fan, I was saying before that I would rather see the team that beats my team win it all. But you know what? How can you not help but, be intrigued by this Indiana Pacers team? And especially when, it looked like it was all going to be over once Halliburton got hurt. And they still found a way to get it to a Game 7. And like I said, if nothing else, this is so exciting just for the simple fact that since 2016, this is the first Game 7 that we've seen in the NBA Finals. So, hey, with that being said, let's move on. Other news that had came out earlier in the week, the Los Angeles Lakers owner Jeannie Buss sold the Lakers for the most money of any team in U.S. sports history. Now, back in 1979, when Dr. Buss bought the team, he paid $67.5 million, and now they sold for $10 billion after 46 years, which is a profit of $9,932,500,000. So, kudos to them. And Jeannie Buss is still actually going to be a part of the organization. So this is a very smart move by them. And we'll see what the Lakers look like in a few months. LeBron looks like he's definitely going to come back. You got to see what Luka Doncic is going to look like, how this offseason is going to be to him. I'm assuming that he's going to look completely different in terms of, what everybody's saying, that he wasn't taking the training seriously and he wasn't in, tip-top shape. So, I can only imagine what they're going to look like going forward. More news out of the NBA. The Rockets head coach, Ime Udoka, now becomes one of the richest NBA coaches. He agreed to a long-term contract extension, and the deal is believed to be worth 8 figures annually, which is, hey, that is awesome. Now, we're talking about a head coach who, in his first season as a head coach, took the Boston Celtics at the time, back in, 2022, 23? He took them all the way to the NBA Finals, it was only season, it was 2021, 2022. He was fired after 22-23 season for a bunch of different stuff, team violations and different stuff, and we're not really going to get into that, but he has proven that he is one of the better coaches in the league. He took the Houston Rockets this year. He got them all the way to second place in the West. Obviously, they didn't make it out of the first round. They lost Game 7 at home, but not to any scrubs. They lost to the Golden State Warriors. So, hey, you can't really fault them for that. Golden State, even with aging players like Draymond and Curry and Jimmy, they're still a really good team, and they always will be as long as they have those three guys, and as long as they have one of the better head coaches in NBA history in Steve Kerr. But for the Rockets, so now we already talked about earlier in the week that they re-signed Steven Adams, which is huge. Obviously, he's not their starter. They still have Alperen Sengun. But earlier today, they made another move so we can finally check this off our summer watch list. Kevin Durant is now a Houston Rocket. The Rockets traded their up-and-coming star, Jalen Green. They also traded Dylan Brooks, the number 10 pick, plus 5 second-round picks. Those second-round picks, one is the 59th overall pick this season, 2 2026 picks, 1 2030 pick that actually was from Boston, and 1 2032 pick. Now, KD is going to turn 37 in September, but he's still playing at an elite level. The woes of the Phoenix Suns, you can't pin that on Kevin Durant. I don't care who you are and what you say. That obviously had nothing to do with him. He was still averaging 26.5 points, 6 rebounds, and just over 4 assists in 62 games this season. He averaged at least 25 points, 50% field goal percentage, and 40% from 3 for the third straight year, which, if you didn't know, that's the longest streak ever in NBA history. And, with Durant now going to the Rockets, this is going to level them up to, they already had second place this year. So, I don't know if they're going to get back to second place. I don't know if they're going to overtake OKC to be the number 1 team next year by the time the playoffs start. But you really have to look at them as, a team that's ready for championship contention now. And again, they have Alperen Sengun, who was an all-star. They also have a two-way star in Amen Thompson and veteran guard Fred VanVleet. And without KD, they won 52 games last year. So now, like I said, I mean, you got to take this team seriously. And it was a no-brainer to get Durant and Udoka back together. They spent time together in Brooklyn and also for USA team. So, I mean, this is just going to be a very exciting team to watch next season. And now when you look on the other end of this trade, with, Dylan Brooks and an up-and-coming guy like Jalen Green going to the Phoenix Suns to help out Devin. But yeah, so they're going to be a team also to look at. I mean, they have a new GM in Phoenix now. They also have a new head coach. So for Matthew Ishbia, all the compensation that he had traded away just a few seasons ago to get KD, he ended up getting back even more. Actually, he got back even more than what he traded when he got KD. So for him, I guess, and for the Phoenix Suns fans, you got to hope that this really works out here. But so now you put those two with Devin Booker, and they got a couple of other pieces here and there. But for them to get Brooks, I mean, that's just going to bring their intensity, especially on the defensive side of things, because he is one of the most physical players in the NBA. And this year, he shot a career best 39, almost 40% from three. And also, like I said, Jalen Green, too. Jalen Green had averaged a team-high 21 points along with 4.5 rebounds and just under 3.5 assists this season. He shot a career best 35.5% from three. He's only 23. So, again, like people were saying when he was still in Houston, it's going to take maybe a little bit of time for him to up his level of gameplay and consistency because as we've seen in the playoffs, there was a couple of those games against Golden State where the man just disappeared. He had single digit, games, and that's not at all what he is perceived to be in the future. He's supposed to be one of the top guys around the league. And now he's got plenty of time to do that and to learn from Devin Booker. And like I said, I mean, there's a reason why we're looking at him saying that he should be a star. He was the number 2 pick in the 2021 draft. He played all 82 games in each of the past 2 seasons for Houston. And he himself made 234 three-pointers this season, which is actually the most by any Houston Rockets player since, you guessed it, James Harden back in 2019-2020. So for both sides, this was a pretty good deal, to say the least, and especially for Houston. And we'll see how both of these teams look when NBA season starts up again. But yeah, so now let's talk a little bit about Giannis. Some people still believe that he may stay put in Milwaukee, but then you also have people debating where is he going to go. We don't think he should stay there, especially with Dame Lillard getting hurt. And he'll probably miss a good portion, if not the whole season next year. And I don't know, because again, when we think about it, the European players, normally they stay put. When it's, up to them, obviously. Luka Doncic, that doesn't count. He was traded and did not even know about it. It was a wild situation that I don't think anyone will ever forget anytime soon, especially. And so I think Giannis, if he was going to get traded somewhere, I think some of the teams that we got to look at and think about as a realistic option may be Miami, maybe the Knicks, but I think the Knicks is largely going to be dependent on a few things, like, for one, who's their head coach going to be going forward? And are they going to keep the same guys that they got? Who would they trade for Giannis? The only one I could think of that may be able to get closest to that salary to take on Giannis' salary, I guess, would be Cat. People were having the same, the same thoughts about if Kevin Durant would have ended up on the Knicks. And, yeah, so we'll see in the next couple of months what happens there. I mean, for all we know, Giannis could stay put and just say, screw it. Let me try to win with the guys we got here, even if we're going to be without Dame. But if they're going to be without Dame, then they got to go out and find themselves like a TJ McConnell type of guy coming off the bench, because the way that team is constructed without Lillard, and plus, I mean, I don't know how many guys are going to be, free agents. And, I mean, they still had a decent, couple of guys there, but they're not going to be able to get it done. And, next year, I don't know if we should really be counting out Boston as much as people are saying without Jason Tatum. They still have Jaylen Brown. They're still going to have probably most of their core group in reality. So, I mean, you still look at them as a potential threat. You still look at the Knicks as a potential threat if Giannis stays in Milwaukee. I don't really see Miami making too many moves that'll help them get, anywhere further into the playoffs. But you do look at what the Orlando Magic already did in acquiring Desmond Bane from the Memphis Grizzlies. And you could, wonder if that could potentially help them get a push to get to the finals next season, or even to possibly get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Indiana, we still don't know, whether or not they win tonight or lose tonight. But either way, I still like them to be around next year to get deep into the finals. Then you have question marks like the Philadelphia 76ers, who, they still had a really good roster. Their whole thing is they need to get, just like the Nuggets, I put them in the same bracket as the Nuggets. If they get a really good, or, at least a decent enough center that can come in and make sure that your team stays in the plus, that's going to make a huge difference, especially when we talk about a team like the Sixers, because, again, we all know how good Joel Embiid is. The whole thing is just he's got to stay healthy. If he can't play any games, then, what's the point of him being there? And when you look again at the amount of games he's missed due to injury, it's more than the amount of games that he's played in his career. So, but, if Embiid is healthy, or if you could just give him less minutes and have a decent enough backup, then I think the Sixers are right back in the thick of things. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll have to see. And I did just bring up the Denver Nuggets as well. I think that they also need to be focusing. I mean, they do have a rookie. They have a rookie center who did not play at all this year. He was injured before the draft, really, last season. So they never got to see him play. But if they get a decent backup, or because actually he could play the 4 or the 5, so I don't really know how they're going to treat that. But Michael Porter Jr. for the Nuggets, it looks like he could possibly still get traded so that they could, just because he's on a max deal, and he's been pretty inconsistent. When he's consistent though, he just adds a whole nother element, like we seen 2 seasons ago when the Nuggets won the championship. I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of question marks, but one thing is Russell Westbrook, and it was reported that about a week or 2 ago that he did decline his player option. However, a report came out a few days ago that he's potentially still open to returning to Denver, and he averaged over 13 points a game, just over 6 assists per game, and he averaged just under 5 rebounds a game, and he played 75 games with 36 starts, and he shot just over 32%, which is from 3, which is the best that he has since 2016 and 17, which was his MVP season. So if they're able to bring Russell Westbrook back, that's going to be a game changer. And, I mean, you could say what you want. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff sometimes that we see from him. Sometimes he is, not playing his best ball, but he's always giving you 110%. And you can never, ever say that his heart's not in the game. At all times, regardless of the score, he's giving you everything he has. And like I said, I mean, sometimes he's going to throw it up and it may be an air ball. From 3, I've seen him have air balls from the free throw, and I don't know. But I know that him and Jokic together, especially, towards the end of the season, they were really starting to build a chemistry there, and you've seen it. You've seen it in the playoffs. Because, again, no matter how the talking heads, don't talk about the Nuggets, or if they do and they talk about them in this light like, well, they're not a top team. Yeah, they have the best player in the world in Jokic, but outside of him, they don't really have a whole lot of firepower. Hey, you could say that if you want, but the proof was in the playoffs, man. OKC, we took them to 7 games. So, again, and this was the top defensive team in the whole NBA this year. So, again, you re-sign Westbrook, and whether or not they trade Michael Porter Jr., if they trade him, that would be good just for the fact that it would free up so much money that maybe they can bring in a couple of vets so that they can add to that rotation. Most teams were playing about 8, maybe 9 guys in rotation in the playoffs. You look at OKC and Indiana, they were going like 10 guys deep. I think even the Knicks were going 10 guys deep in their rotation. So that's what we need, the recipe that will end up, successful. And who knows? We'll wait and see what happens. Again, we have a few months now to think about these things and talk about them. But now I'm going to transition over to the NFL. Just a few more things to discuss here. First thing is 5-time Pro Bowl linebacker. Played with both the Jets and the Ravens. He was the captain of both teams. C.J. Mosley retires from the NFL. And like I said, he was a 5-time Pro Bowler. And he was a really, really underrated, in my opinion, a really underrated player for, his entire career. And I remember when I was younger, the Ravens, even though my team is not the Ravens, but that was always a team that really, drawed my attention because of their defense. And obviously, they had Ed Reed, they had Ray Lewis, they had Chris McAllister, Samori Rolle. They had a lot of great guys there, Terrell Suggs. But Mosley was one of those players that was like must watch. And even when he was with the Jets, and for the Jets, it's not, I don't want to say it's not as big of a deal, but he was actually injured the past couple of seasons. Last year, he only played 13 games. He had something going on with his neck. He also had a toe injury. So he did end up actually, even though he was at one point, the leader and the signal caller on their defense, he ended up losing his job to Jamie and Sherwood last season. So again, for them, it kind of made sense, especially with the injury woes, to move on from him. He originally had signed a 5-year, $85 million contract with the Jets back in 2019 after 5 consecutive great, seasons with the Baltimore Ravens. He also became the first Baltimore Raven voted to the Pro Bowl as a rookie. And then he also ended up having 3 more Pro Bowl seasons consecutive from 16 to 18. His first year with the Jets, he was limited even that year, only played 2 games because of a groin injury. He also sat out in 2020 during COVID-19. That was just his decision. Had nothing to do with an injury, but it was COVID, obviously, you know. So, and in 2021, when he returned, oh man, he had 168 tackles. And then the following year, he had 158. And then the year after that, 152. So again, that's why I'm saying this player was, I think, very underrated. And if you knew him, if you watched him, then you would understand how much he meant to both of those organizations. And he had 5 Pro Bowls, and he also, in 2022, was voted to the second-team All-Pro. He was the 17th overall pick by the Baltimore Ravens back in 2014 out of Alabama. He now retires with just shy of 1,100 career tackles. He had 1,082, 687 of which were solo tackles. He also recorded 12 sacks, 12 INTs, 10 forced fumbles, 9 fumble recoveries, and 2 touchdowns in his career. And if you didn't know, he was from Alabama, and he was rated one of the top linebackers in the country in high school. He ended up playing for Nick Saban in Alabama, and he also, let's look at some of these other accolades here. He earned freshman All-American honors, and he also helped the Crimson Tide win consecutive BCS national championships during 2011 and 2012. And he also won the Buckus Award in 2013 as college football's top linebacker. So next on the list, we're going to get to, we're going to do this. We're going to do the Green Bay Packers had released cornerback Jair Alexander, and the Baltimore Ravens picked him up, and now he is reunited with his college teammate in Lamar. And when you look at, the last couple of years, he only played 14 games over the last 2 seasons, dealt with a bunch of injuries. He also was suspended a few games too. But last year, only playing 7 games and still had 2 interceptions. He's already had 12 in his career. Not great, but he is known as one of the better coverage corners in the league. And when you look at the rest of the DB room that he is now surrounded by in Baltimore, I mean, this is going to be one of the best defensive back groups in all of football. You got the Broncos, you got obviously the Eagles, and you look at, he's got Marlon Humphrey, it's Jair Alexander, Kyle Hamilton, who's one of the better safeties in the league, and actually they had him at corner and at safety at times last season and the year before, and then Nate Wiggins, and they also just signed recently Chidobe Awuzie, and also they have Malachi Starks that they just drafted this year, who was recognized as one of the better safeties in all of college football. So, and then you look at other guys on their defense. They still got Roquan Smith. They still got, the savvy veteran Kyle Van Noy and Namdi Matabuke. Apologize, sorry about that. And that's why, if you hadn't already seen, I just wanted to let people know that earlier today I made my list of 1 through 32. My power rankings for the NFL, and I'm not gonna, give away too much here, but what I will say is I do not have the Kansas City Chiefs nor the Philadelphia Eagles ranked number 1 for the power rankings. So if you want to go over and take a look at that, that's going to be on the site. I'll have the description. I'll have the link in the description for the episode. And lastly, news that came out about maybe a little bit over an hour ago now. The Jacksonville Jaguars finally got a deal done with their rookie receiver / cornerback, Travis Hunter. Signed a 4-year contract with the Jaguars, and the team announced the deal is worth $46.65 million, fully guaranteed, which includes $30.57 million signing bonus, which is going to be paid up front. Hunter is now the first non-quarterback not drafted first overall to get his signing bonus entirely up front. He was one of the last of the top 10 draft picks to sign his contract. So now the only 2 first-round picks of the top 10 that don't have a deal done yet, or first round overall, I apologize, Shamar Stewart, with that situation going on in Cincinnati. We talked about that in the last episode or the episode prior to that. And the only other first-round draft pick not signed is Denver's cornerback, Jahdae Barron, out of Texas. So, yeah. The Jaguars also, by the way, they traded 4 draft picks, if you did not know, the number 5, number 36, and 126, and a first-round pick for 2026, just to move up and trade spots with the Cleveland Browns to get Travis Hunter. And I am eager to see, what they do over there in Jacksonville, especially already having Brian Thomas from last year, who was one of the better receivers in the league. And it's just if you watch Colorado, the Colorado Buffaloes last year with Travis Hunter, or any, the past 2 years, and you see how versatile this kid is, it's like in baseball with Shohei Ohtani, who is, batting and pitching in the same game now. It's just, these are generational talents, and it's just going to be crazy to see how he can perform and how many snaps he really plays, because Liam Cohen, the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach, did confirm that they are going to have packages where he is going to be playing both sides of the ball. I don't think it's going to be every snap of every game, and but still, for what they're going to have for him, however many snaps he plays at receiver and at corner, this is just going to be something special that I don't think the NFL is really going to ever see again. In the past, we had guys that played snaps on both sides of the ball every now and then. Champ Bailey played a few snaps at receiver for the Broncos back in the day. He was one of the better corners in the league. Deion Sanders played a little bit of receiver along with being corner. I believe Charles Woodson, at times, but not to this extent. So again, this is going to be very interesting to see. And, I think that's it for today. And I just wanted to say yet again, thank you guys. I appreciate the viewership. And remember to please like, subscribe, comment if you like the show. You can find Elite Sports Talk on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Audible. And I'm also on YouTube, and it's all one word, Elite Sports Talk Podcast, all one word. And I think that's it. I think that's everything. So let's enjoy this Game 7. Let's go Indiana Pacers. That's right. That's what I'm saying. I'm going with Indiana. And have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace.